Hello and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host Bryan. We're going to continue on with this week's theme of first and last, looking at a track from a band's first and last albums. Monday and Tuesday we checked out Catatonia. Today we're starting a new band, looking at Turnstile. We're going to be looking at a track off of their debut album called Pressure to Succeed. This track is Heavy Hand. Very aggressive sound, very full. Wow, an immediate shift. That was a short intro. The only way, and you will feel it in your head like you never did. I hope you feel it in your heart and you fall apart. I'm coming down, swinging my heavy hand. Hitting that groove. Oh, I'm coming down. So this is very lots of pedal tone here. Yeah, it has that little arpeggio, creates a bit of melody against a lot of the other aggressive So this is our opening. There's another one. A little bit of a melodic rise. Wow, that was a whirlwind. It's over already? I mean, it was less than 3 minutes, but still. Alright, so our intro wasn't our outro, but we do have a concept of cycle. We had our intro, then we had our verse that led into a groovy chorus, gave way for a melodic expression. That was the guitar solo, brought us back to our intro, back to our verse, back to our groovy chorus, I think, and then took us out of the track. I think it's interesting that a lot of this track bounces back and forth between that really harsh texture, just really focusing in on a single note and creating this like rough textural rhythm out of it, and the other half, which is this melodic expression. It's our guitar solo. It's these little licks at the beginning of phrases or at the end of phrases sometimes. These little moments to want to bring melody into the song, but they just don't get to stick around for too long before that textural rhythmic stuff takes back over. And this is just metal. Like I don't know what genre this is, but metal does this a lot, especially 90s metal. Yeah, maybe a little bit of 80s metal, just pedal tone writing for 3 bars with a lick in our fourth bar is just very typical of that style of that era of music. So this came out in 11? Is that accurate? 2011. Oh, this was an EP also. The final track off of an EP. I'm gonna wager this was a short album. So it's listed as hardcore punk. Interesting. Um, but yeah, so like I don't know if I should read too much into it, but it does feel like every time the melody starts to get out a little bit, it gets reined right back in, and it's like no 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 no, we ain't doing that. Let's get back to the grittiness every single time. There is that middle point, I think, when we hit the groove. And this gives us that little like 5 note intro into the pedal tone writing, and then you get the little arpeggiation back to the pedal note writing. And it's like super groovy with just a hair bit of delay at the end of every other note, so it kind of gives it this ebb and flow to it, and it feels like it's not as aggressive. It's the middle point between the two, and I think that's very cool. Now, something else that's going to tie into this duality that I want to touch on is the vocals. Our intro, and when we hit the intro the second time at like a minute and a half in, the vocals are falsetto vocalization, just like ooh, just like these ooh sounds off in the background. It's such a far cry from the aggressive double tracked. I think it's harmonized on a fourth maybe, which is going to introduce tension and uh, what is that term I like to use? Anyways, it introduces it's not a stable. That's it. It's an unstable. It adds instability and tension to it. That's what I was going for. Um, and we can especially hear it at the end. He holds this one note out right before we get to the end. It might have been the last note the vocalist sang, and you can absolutely hear the tension of it. There isn't a lot of grit in it. He's not screaming or putting compression on it, but there's a lot of distortion in the two vocal tracks, and it creates this tension and butting up of heads in the vocals just from having the two notes being just unstable enough for that. Um, but yeah, so we have this aggressive shouting style, and then we have this. Well, also it's double tracked to create tension in the note relationship, and then we have this single voiced falsetto vocalization. And I don't know what it means, but it is another sense of duality. There is a divide here where part of the song wants to be melodic and flowy, and the other half wants to be very aggressive and staccato and very disjointed. And for all I know, that's just what they wanted to write. But it is something that I'm picking up on. The last thing I wanted to touch on before we hit lyrics, which I know this isn't a very lengthy analysis, but it's not a super complex song. Not every song needs a 45-minute video for it. The last thing I wanted to touch on, though, is the drumming, which I think is very simple. I should probably stop saying every time I say simple, somebody gets mad about it. But it is. It's very metronomic. It's very functional, and it's not super flashy either. Like blast beats or 16th note alternating snare and bass kick that black metal likes to do is functional too. Its job is to just lay down this constant, steady beat. It is a bit more difficult to do. It requires more endurance and the skill to operate at the speed, but uh, it's a very functional concept as well. This is a simple function. This is just a lot of quarter notes and an occasional eighth note, really just honing in on these downbeats. Um, and I find that interesting. It grinds against the concept of this music for me. Like I said, this reminds me of 90s metal. And the drumming doesn't. The drumming is just a hair bit too functional. And a lot of 90s drumming was metronomic too. It was really designed to be functional, but not as simplistic as this. And I don't know why this stands out to me so much, but the whole time I was listening, I was waiting for the drummer to have some wild fills or, to shift it up and go into a double time. Double time would actually fit this really well. There's a lot of elements in here where double time would just flow into it, and the guitars wouldn't have to change anything, the vocals wouldn't have to change anything. It would just bump up the intensity of the song, and never did that either. There's just an intention on keeping it at this pace, at this speed, at this rhythm. The drummer is controlling everything, and it's so calculated. Oh, there was one more thing I wanted to touch on, and that's the guitar solo. It also is intentionally simplistic. In fact, there is one section where it almost felt like the guitarist began to lean into something that would be very melodically flowy. And we do a couple notes into it, and like the notes he chooses and the rhythm that they choose to utilize for this, I'm like, okay, I know where this is going. And then it just kind of stops on a note. It just hangs out there for a little bit, plays a couple other notes on the same pitch, and I'm just like, well, that was interesting. You clearly signposted where you were going and decided just to veer off, and this one note just really caught your attention, huh? And it almost gives it like this novice writing element to it. I feel like that's going to be taken the wrong way too. The song is very simple overall, but I feel like it's intentionally simple. It's almost dumbed down in a way to focus on the simplicity as a compositional technique. I would almost wager, I might be wrong on this, the rest of the tracks on this album are not this simple. They might still be on the simpler side. This is punk after all. Punk's not really typically known for progressive or avant garde or experimental ideas, but I think this one in particular is designed for just the bare bones basic stuff. I don't know why, but it feels like everybody is underpowering themselves. Their skill level is up here, and they wrote something down here for a purpose. Because every bit of this performance feels like half of it feels like they're phoning it in, and the other half feels like they're intentionally trying to play something below their skill level to see if they'll get bored. And I hope that doesn't come across as cynical or like I'm looking down on them or anything. It's just there's something about this that feels like they could play faster or more intricate or more complex or more rhythmically whatever, and they're just not for some reason. Anybody else feel that? Maybe that's just me. But the guitar solo was like the big point. Like the drums not really doing anything complex was kind of alarming, but sometimes drummers are just super functional. I'm just going to be a metronome. No fills, nothing complex. But the guitarist really started to move into something interesting and then just stops. Like they had to physically stop themselves from playing something more complex and then just sit on this one note. I keep thinking back, what was the point of that? And I don't know. We're gonna hit the lyrics right here, and we'll see if that has any hints towards what their aim was with this track that seems to be accomplishing or attempting to accomplish this duality through simplicity. Well, no shade thrown towards punk, but it's not really a genre I tend to think of having the deepest lyrics. And this doesn't change that. There is one line here. Like I mentioned, we kind of do verse, chorus, bridge, verse, chorus, right? And the verse and the chorus are the exact same thing. And in fact, I don't know if there is a verse chorus. It might just be a different riff that happens, right? It might just be that really staccato, stagnated, not segmented riff, then the groovier riff that I thought was the chorus, and then something a hair bit more melodic, but it's just all one idea to them. Um, which makes it super cyclical at that point, because then the song's just a outro. But it says, pain the only way, and you will feel it in your head like you never did. I hope you feel it in your heart and you fall apart. I'm coming down, swinging my heavy hand. Repeat that all over again. And then this is where one thing changes. It says, I know there's peace deep inside, but people push me around every day. Let me be all right now. They'll never change. So I think this is about enjoying being in the moment of being heated, being angry. You know, literally, as he says, people push me around, right? They push my buttons, and maybe literally gets into a fist fight, right? And at that moment, you know, they feel joy in inflicting pain. Or maybe it's not even, it might not even be joy, but it's a catharsis, right? He says that I hope you feel pain in your head like you never did, and I hope you feel that pain in your heart and you fall apart because I'm swinging my heavy hand. Right? So this whole thing feels like a fist fight to me. I think it's really interesting too at the very beginning. It starts out with pain the only way. I think this is a super important line. It's not just about that I hope this hurts you physically and I hope this hurts you emotionally and you learn from it, right? But it's also that I feel this is the only way to get my message across is through this pain. It's really insightful look into our character's mentality at this moment, which is during, like I mentioned, I think this opening line is during this super segmented, really rough moment. There is no peace, as says later on, that I know there's peace within me, right? But you know there is nothing melodic here at all. And then he says, I hope you feel it in your heart. And I come swinging down. I think this is where it gets a bit more groovier. Maybe he's feeling in his element here. And then after this, he says, I'm swinging my heavy hand. This is where the song melts down. We have that slower melodic moment the first time around. And then we have our guitar solo the second time around. And this almost feels like the aftermath, right? The tempers start to cool down a little bit and you start to, realize what happened and you kind of have this low and maybe even there's vindication, right? I know what I did. I have clarity of mind and I still think that what I did was the best thing. Now I'm just trying to find that peace. He says, I know there's peace deep inside me. The problem is people keep pushing me around. And that's where the cycle starts again. Tries to find that peace. We try to get a little bit of melody in here and we can't. And so the aggression, that really, rigid guitar line comes back in. And we go right back into our main line about pain. To me, that's kind of heartbreaking. Especially the final line. It says, I just want to be all right. But they'll never change. And like, of course, you can't always blame it on other people, right? But at the same time, it sucks if you're trying to better yourself and it seems everybody else around you is always trying to keep you down. And you got anger issues on top of that. And it gets you in the fights constantly. Like there's certainly a both sides here where people just got to leave people alone, but you're also the one getting in these fights too, right? But it's a sad song. I think the music works well with it. This I don't know if I'm 100% sure on on the concept that the rest of their music's going to be a hair bit more complex anymore. Thinking about these lyrics and listening to the music, this might just be the type of music they make. Is simple punk, right? But it does make me think about the guitar solo a little bit more. It really starts to move into this beautiful idea. It tries to find that peace and it can't. And this is the moment, at least as far as I understand the song, is when this person's alone, when they have the opportunity to search for this peace deep inside of them, and they can't do it here on their own. The music hasn't started to build up into this aggressive fight music yet. It's still just our narrator alone. They're still hamstrung. So there's still a lot of emotional maturity that needs to go on for this person to to move on and reach their next level of self-control and understanding. But it's there. The concept's there. They've almost got it. And I think that's some of the more heartbreaking part here. It's not just that other people push their buttons and get them riled up. It's that they don't have the tools yet to properly do this. You know, that guitar solo is really sad. Those are my thoughts. Probably thought a little bit too much about this one, but I don't know. I read into stuff. My thoughts on Turnstile's Heavy Hand. Let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy it? Anything that stood out to you? If you'd like to expand upon anything I said, or give me your own perspectives, or correct me on stuff I said, let me know in the comment section below. Above that is a description box, and there's a link for a link tree, which takes you to this place right here. It's got links for everything related to the channel. You can find my music, you can find a Discord server, you can find ways to support the channel, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three. We have a special selection coming up next. If that doesn't interest you, I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC to check out something from Turnstile's latest album. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, with the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.